PC security is really becoming a major thing recently. Battle.net has of course been compromised recently. NVIDIA forums of course were also compromised, as well as its developer zone. And it's just the start of it really. There's going to be quite a lot of these things, I imagine, coming over the next few months. So this guide is just to help you. It's by no means going to be complete, because I can't possibly cover every single aspect of security. But these are just a few ideas to kind of give you a heads up. The first I'm a massive advocate in is to have multiple email addresses. This one's a very simple concept, as you can imagine. But disposable email addresses, such as with Gmail or Hotmail or whatever your chosen one is a very good way to sign up to forums or other websites that you're not particularly bothered about. This is good for, say, if you don't particularly want lots of spam mail to go into your main account, then have another one specifically for banks or maybe for online gaming, such as, say, Steam or your Xbox Live account, that kind of thing. This helps prevent phishing emails, because obviously if they click on it, it does somewhat help. You obviously have to be careful of still phishing spam, because obviously if someone sends it to you and you click on a link and you don't have any protection on your PC, or your PC protection is out of date, or it just slips by your scanner, you still can get infected. But at least it's a step in the right direction. And obviously there's still the user level, which I'll get into in a moment. But generally having a couple of email addresses is a pretty good way to deal with this. Now, while I don't think this is exactly breaking news, I think many people are still guilty of it, and that is passwords. There are a lot of people who have either very simple passwords, such as ABC123, or they have the same password for multiple things. This is deadly. For example, let's say you have an email account, or you have a game account, whatever, it doesn't matter, and I get access to that, and your password is, let's go with cookie. Now, I immediately know your email address, because obviously I've compromised that email address. So then I'll try different things, such as the World of Warcraft account and so on, and I'll just keep trying your same password, cookie, with of course your email address as the login. And it's a very simple idea, but obviously it does work, and hackers get in quite a lot, so do try to have different passwords. You can also have a password document if you really want. Just be very mindful of the fact that, of course, if your PC is broken into, or your PC is wiped, for example, let's say the hard drive crashes or what have you, you could potentially lose that. So just keep it safe somewhere in your house, maybe. If you're very bad at remembering different passwords, that type of thing, just be warned. Obviously, if you do get burgled, there's a possibility they could take it, but there's a lot less chance of that. Just put it in a smart place if you are going to do it. Generally speaking, though, if you can remember the passwords, something deep and meaningful, that's pretty great. But just be warned of simple passwords as well. Generally speaking, the simpler a password is, the less time it takes for a brute force crack to actually happen, and for them to actually get into it. So just remember that kind of thing, and also try to choose secret questions and answers that are a little bit complicated, if there is an option for that on your particular account sign up. Next one deals primarily with people who are either in your house or your workplace, whatever. I personally would highly recommend you put a password on your Windows or Mac or whatever account you're using. Most people probably do this, but it's still a very good practice to remember to actually lock your PC. With a Windows machine, you simply tap the Windows plus the L key and it will just lock the machine down. It's a very good practice to get into, because you just basically can stop anyone from just quickly sneaking access to your files, that type of thing. And also, of course, it stops petty and pranks being done to you, such as, let's go with someone sabotaging your Facebook and writing a silly status, that type of thing, and giving you a relationship with a sponge or something similar. It's just a simple, good practice to get into, and I'd highly recommend it. Updates. There are a lot of people who are guilty of not installing them. Please do so. This is particularly true of Windows and operating system updates, as well as updates to games and other software, particularly if it has a lot of access to the internet. Also browsers. you might not believe it, but there's a lot of browser exploits out there that just, a couple of months an exploit can get hold of a browser without a good update. So make sure you keep updated on your browsers. Make sure you don't just pass it off. This isn't true, of course, of Flash and everything else that runs, because if it has sufficient permissions, it can, hijack your browser. It's just a good practice. Windows Update, same thing. It doesn't take long to do it. I know it's a pain in the ass. In an ideal world, you'll schedule yourself a little bit of time, just make sure everything's updated. If not, just do it organically, whatever you need to do. I do realise, however, Windows updates can be fairly large, particularly if it's a service pack, but come on, it's the safety of your machine, so just go ahead and do it. Next, I know many of you probably do this already, but there's probably an equal amount of you who do not, and that is install a virus protection on their system as well as anti-spyware and so on. Now, remember, a lot of them are free, and there's also a good reason to have a firewall, even if you have a hardware firewall, for example with a router. Now, I'm going to get into the hardware firewalls versus software for a moment. The really great benefit of a software firewall is quite simply that you can have a lot more control locally over what it runs and so on. There are numerous firewalls that are completely free. I'm not going to say one is better than the other. I personally am using Komodo free. It's a pretty nice firewall, and it has the benefit of being able to stop any certain applications who are requesting access to the internet or my network in general from, well, it just can basically stop them. And that's handy because obviously if you do become infected and that application is exe, for example, or let's go with the executable of a file has changed, Komodo will go ahead and detect that and say, hey, you know what, dude, this application is trying to access the internet. Are you cool with that, or do you have a problem with it? And I can say, you know what, I totally understand. Yeah, I don't mind, Counter-Strike accessing the internet. Go right ahead. Or I can say, hey, you know what, I didn't make a change to that operating system file. What's going on here? And I can take a moment and actually think about it. It's very handy. Most people do have firewalls or antivirus now, but it's still very good practice. There is an argument of people who say that you don't need one as long as you're very careful on what you click on. I would counter that, and I would say, you know what, I totally understand that there are things you can do. For example, having a non-administrative account that you access the internet with. That's one right there. You can go ahead and be very careful and mindful of what you're clicking. You have a good up-to-date browser, which is, of course, very important. But you know what? Gone are the days where we really have to worry about computational power. Most systems now have at least 4 gigs of RAM, some 6, 8 or more. And to be honest with you, I personally do not want the extra hassle or concern of worrying about a firewall or, an antivirus application that's not running. I'd rather, use the 1 or 2%, of RAM. It's probably not even that, to be honest, of all my, combined applications and just not have to worry. It's that simple. I consider myself an advanced user, but I don't particularly want the hassle. I don't want to have to worry so much about what I'm clicking on. Okay, obviously I still am going to be careful. I'm not just going to, click on, hey, you've won a free car in my email. That's just silly. However, I am going to just think to myself, hey, you know what, if I do misclick, and that does happen, bear in mind, sometimes you can accidentally misclick on something, or someone else's PC can be affected and they send you a Facebook message and you're just, not paying much attention and you just click, or what have you. It can happen. Or, for example, if you happen to be sharing the PC with many people, it's just a simple good practice to have a good firewall or antivirus. Now, I know I might be droning on a bit about this, but a lot of people are guilty of not doing it, particularly with spyware. Spybot Search and Destroy, Adware, these are very good applications. You should keep them updated. Once again, there's no point in having something unless it's updated, because new viruses and new hacks are being released all the time, and if there's basically it's a piece of malware or an exploit that's discovered and it's not patched because you haven't bothered to download the latest version, you're not going to be protected against this. It's simple stuff. And I know many of you are probably aware of it, but I just want to point it out anyway, because some people may not be. So anyway, there you go. If you feel that your PC is compromised, or you just want to check it over, and signs of being compromised are, for example, pop-ups that are appearing for no particular reason. Let's say something similar, such as you're getting random messages, you're feeling your PC is running a bit sluggish, that type of behaviour. You know, the general stuff, or maybe even blue screens of death that are a bit odd, then you might want to check the following stuff out. I do have a video on msconfig, and it also deals with services. That's a good one. It's a basic startup belts and braces thing. I use it a lot on systems that have weird messages. The best way to do that is to start in safe mode. To get into safe mode, you've got a couple of choices. The best one is hammer the F8 key when your system's booting. Note, if you hammer it a bit too early, some BIOSes will take you into bootloading options where you can choose a hard drive. If so, you need to just wait a fraction of a second longer, then hammer F8. Then you've got a few options: safe mode with a networking, for example, or with certain drivers. I would personally recommend to load the video drivers up, but don't have networking, because obviously if it's networking, that could be the problem. Or you can just simply take out the cable, or you can just go with minimum settings, which is also a good one. Basically, it does not load any applications other than basic Windows. So assuming the system's not really compromised, you'll be able to just get into your Windows account. As I've said, I have gone into this in more detail on the msconfig video, which you guys of course are more than welcome to check out. Anyway, other applications which are nice are Hijack This. It's a fairly simple application. I will be putting out a video on this and how to use it in the not too distant future. Hijack This basically allows you to have a lot more control over what's running in your machine. Can seem a little bit intimidating, particularly to newbies, but it is extremely powerful. And there are tutorials out there. As I've said, I will be putting out my own pretty soon. It's also free, so that's the key word here. Why would you want to pay for to fix your PC if you can get it for free? And this is one of those instances you don't have to pay a buck. It's completely free, so definitely check that one out. There's also another application called Unlocker. Now, some viruses or other, let's go with malicious programs and files, can basically set themselves so the file is always running and you can't delete it. This is, to put it mildly, irritating. It doesn't really matter what you do normally. However, Unlocker, it attempts, and use always attempts, although for me it's been pretty much successful 100% of the time. I think there's been once it hasn't. And basically with this application, it basically unlocks the file, so it allows you to delete it. Once again, you can of course run this in safe mode for best results. I'll probably run a video on this actually and Hijack This, because I think they're both really good applications together and they really work in sync. Next up is System Restore. Back in the day, particularly in the days of Windows ME, that's Millennium Edition of course, I was a massive opponent of this. I really didn't like it, and one of the reasons is it had a massive tendency to back up viruses, and I kid you not. Viruses would literally hang out in System Restore, and I have known people who would clean their system dutifully with antivirus, whatever they'd use, and then a couple of days later they'd say to me, hey, you know what, the virus is back, what's going on? And what would basically happen is the System Restore, it would pretty much hold the virus, and the virus would reside there, and then eventually it would somehow filter its way back into the system files, and you wouldn't be able to get rid of it. However, recently it's less of a big deal, and I will say that System Restore is very handy. And to be honest with you, as I've said, I'm a fairly advanced PC user, but sometimes it's just bloody easier to just do a System Restore. It's that simple. Making sure your System Restore is not disabled is one of the easiest and simplest ways to fix problems. Now, there are multiple ways of doing restores. I'm not going to particularly go into all of them on this. I will be doing a video on this in a not too distant future. Bear in mind, you can choose the size of the files that you want to restore. So the actual size of the partition, and of how much size is dedicated on a particular drive. So, for example, if you just want a gig of System Restore, hey, go right ahead, you knock yourself out. If you want something a bit bigger though, if you want something more tangible, you can also go ahead and generally speaking, a good idea to go for, you know, at least a couple of gigs of restore. It is handy if you've installed an application or just something malicious has come on. You just need to, you know, roll back a couple of states. The only thing is obviously is if Windows has not made a system restore point at a particular point, you may lose, say, let's go, a game may uninstall itself or something. But I would highly recommend it still. It's sometimes just bloody simpler than messing around. Windows will sometimes just, you know, sort the problem right out for you. And it's also good for sorting out other small problems as well, such as, say, crashes or files that are missing, damaged updates, particularly Windows updates, that kind of thing. But I'm not going to go into all of that in this particular video. I will do another video on this. If I forget, please do remind me. To be honest, I think pretty much everyone I know is guilty of this, including myself. I'll be totally blunt. And that is, you guessed it, backups. If a hard drive fails, for the most part, you're screwed. There are cases, however, if you delete something, you can get a recovery software, Recuva. I believe the spelling for that is R-E-C-U-V-A. That's a free software. And sometimes, if you do have a file and you accidentally delete it, and by delete it I mean shift delete, not, you know, it goes into a cycle, but you can just recover it that way. But if you do happen to delete something like mail or whatever, then Recuva can help, because it basically tries to restore the file. But bear in mind, if you have not noticed the file is a little bit, you know, a couple of months old, for example, and you notice it's missing, then there's going to be a few problems, because basically data on a hard drive, it's never completely erased. Well, you know, I'm just going to say, if you just press the delete key, it's not completely erased. Basically, the data is still there. It is usually recoverable, but the more the hard drive gets filled up, the more chance it's not. So, in other words, once data replaces that section of the hard drive, in other words, once data is rewritten and rewritten and rewritten over that section of the hard drive, the harder it is for the software to basically, you know, piece it back together. Let's just make it simple. So, and besides the fact that still doesn't help you if your hard drive falls over, you know, or your PC is stolen or what have you. So it's a good idea to have a backup solution in place. Here's a few. USB hard drive is fairly obvious. USB hard drive, not the most expensive solution out there in the world. There was a time where a dual layer DVD or a single layer DVD, a couple of them, would probably be enough to pretty much back up everything you was really, you know, precious and dear to you. I remember back in the day when I had a CD writer, and my hard drive at the time was only like 10 or something like that gigs. And then I upgraded to like a 50 gig hard drive or something. I was like, wow, this is so much space. And so I could pretty much, you know, with just 10 or so CDs or DVDs as the time went, you know, fit everything on. This is no longer the case, of course. Hard drives are huge. A 1 terabyte hard drive now is considered pretty average. There are some at 500 or whatever. Even if you look at a 500 gig hard drive, even if you put it in full, that's 250 gigs. Now, obviously, not everything's going to be precious to you, but you know there is going to be some stuff in the photos and everything else expanding. My point being, you're probably not going to be able to back everything up on DVDs. Therefore, USB hard drive is a fairly reasonable solution, fairly cheap. The only problem with that is it's mechanical, and by mechanical I mean that can fail as well. And it also has the problem of being on site, in other words, in your house or home or office or what have you. The other option is DVDs. As I've said, they're not really that realistic. There is Blu-rays. Blu-ray writers are coming down in price. The only problem is the media is still fairly expensive. I personally don't have a Blu-ray writer, if I'm totally blunt. It's something I really do need to get hold of, purchase though, for my own personal sanity. And there is also offline facilities to back up. This, of course, use your internet to do it. If you do have a limited amount of bandwidth or you have a slow-ass connection, that can be a problem. I don't exactly think many of you guys are going to be on dial-up anymore. However, if you are dealing with a limited amount of data, for example, you're on 50 gigs a month, I don't know if that's the case for you guys in the States, but some ISPs in the UK still operate on a very, strict usage policy. Usually, if you're paying a low fee, there are some ISPs, of course, that have unlimited data, and more power to them and users who use them. But there are some, of course, that are on very strict data limits. If that's the case, you might not find offline backups all that appealing at all times. Either way though, you probably want to figure out a solution of some description. Okay guys, this is a bit longer than I actually thought it was going to be, but I think I've covered everything very briefly. This is a very, very brief overview of security. I think most of you probably have done most of them already. There might have been one or two you wasn't 100% aware of, so hopefully that's just given you an idea. I will be releasing individual videos in the not too distant future, which will be dealing with telling you how to, fix things with hijack this, fixing things with backups and restores, that type of thing, just because, as I've said before, I think it's just good practice for people to know this stuff. So hopefully, anyway, you guys have found this a little bit helpful. So, take care of yourself, bye for now, and if you could subscribe so you can get these videos and, be aware of them, that would be mighty appreciated. Bye for now.